I hope you're all well. As Ollie mentioned, I'm Joe Elias, Senior Director of Program Management. I'm extremely privileged not only to have been working on this, but to also be working with my colleagues. Kim Folds, our lead research person, Esti Bagmashvili, our lead production person, Shana Cohen, our lead education person, and Dina Kafuri, our lead marketing and digital comms person. I'm going to try and not talk as much. What I love about this kind of space is I get to share it with my colleagues. And so I'll hand over to them and we'll kind of do a relay race through this this presentation. So, and I also want to acknowledge Marina Gabriel, who's the program coordinator, who's been extremely helpful in bringing this all together and supporting this partnership and this grant with GSMA. Thanks, Marina. On to the next slide. Okay, so brief, we'll do a bit of an introduction to the project. We'll focus on the trust in our content. We'll share with you some elements of that, the actual reach of the content. And then because we want to kind of try and focus on those two elements, there were so many other elements. And then we'll kind of go into hopefully some time for Q&A. Fingers crossed, I'd really love that myself. Okay. So next slide. And then the next slide, sorry. This is just a great opportunity to see Basma, really one of our characters. So our goal as Sesame Workshop is and has always been to help kids grow smarter, stronger, and kinder. The overall Ahlan Simsim initiative was initially funded by the MacArthur Foundation, and that was our $100 million grant focused on supporting Syrian refugees and other children in the crisis settings of the MENA region. And across in that overall initiative, we actually started to think, where could we partner with and work with someone who could help us focus on the mobile technology element of the overall Ahlan Simsim initiative. And so we were extremely thankful. And actually, I should not forget Chloe, who helped us. She's our philanthropic development person here at Sesame Workshop, who really helped steer us to this partnership with GSMA. And so, yeah, we thought, let's see if this kind of opportunity sounds good to GSMA. So we thought, okay, let's leverage the power of mobile technology and our engaging, tested Ahlan Simsim content to improve key social and emotional outcomes among Syrian refugee families. We wanted to do this through scale and very much in a research-backed, innovative way, using the resources to promote through our digital platforms with families that are already actively and regularly engaging with Ahlan Simsim, as well as in the region overall. And again, as I mentioned, this was an amazing opportunity to leverage the investment and strength of Ahlan Simsim as a brand, as a trusted brand in the region. So through the process of getting the project set up and partnering with GSMA, we felt that it was important to come up with some parent and caregiver focus areas. So how do we improve the skills of parents and caregivers focused on social and emotional learning? And this is a little bit of a seed for one of the quizzes that are going to come up shortly. But our initial KPIs, you know, we wanted to reach through mobile platforms and mobile technology, over 100,000 views on Facebook, as well as 88 comments, 787 likes, 300 shares, as well as at least 100,000 views on YouTube. Thanks, Marina. Next slide. Okay, and now I'm going to hand over to Kim.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Joe. Yes, so part of this process, and really part of any work that we do at Sesame Workshop, is grounded in formative research. And typically what that means is that we show content to children and their families to get a sense of what's fun, what's funny, what's engaging, appealing, and what is helping children learn. This was a different situation for us because we're making videos for parents with Muppets. And so we had to really adapt our approach here. And in working with Shauna and Esti, they already knew the messages that they wanted to share, but they weren't sure about the messenger. And I think we all know the messenger can be often as important as the message itself. So jumping to the next slide, we had to test who was going to be the right messenger for our messages. So as I mentioned, we tested set messages with different trusted messengers, and you can see a screenshot of each of the 3 trusted messengers that we provided to families to collect their feedback. So we ran some online focus groups in July of last year with displaced Syrian families in Jordan and Lebanon. Each watched the same script, Importance of Play, delivered by the 3 different messengers, and then we collected their feedback. And then at the end of all of this, once all of the video content was available, we went back to parents. Same demographics, displaced Syrians, parents of children 4 to 6 in Jordan, Lebanon, had them watch at least half of the videos, rotating the videos to understand which worked best with each other as well, to collect additional insight. And so jumping to the next slide, focusing on the formative piece. Oh, it's a quiz. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Sorry, Jenny, I'm handing over to you for a quiz.
It should be on everyone's screen right now. I'll just give everyone a minute to respond or less, and then we can continue from there. I think we have had the majority of people, nearly everyone now respond to it, so we can move on to the next slide. And I think quite a few people got the correct answer.
Yeah, our audience has a good sense of what parents will relate to. And so very much across the 6 videos we tested, parents really indicated that they would prefer the social worker. We tested the importance of play, but then we also asked them, okay, now imagine that we were making these videos across these other different topical areas. Who would you want to hear from versus what you saw today? And parents mostly preferred the social worker, followed by the caregiver. What was interesting is that the doctor was really not appealing to parents, except for nutrition. And it's most likely there because parents can see the direct link between they feel like it's more scientific, although we know that there's science behind all of these topics and why they're important for children's development. And so jumping to the next slide, we also wanted to understand, okay, they prefer the social worker, but what is it about a trusted messenger that parents want to see across the board? So experience, demeanor, and ability to provide feasible solutions were really key for parents. They would prefer a young woman or man, but they need to be friendly and they need to have a nice soft tone of voice, simple, clear language, provide lots of examples and advice. And we know this from any content, right? I need to be able to see how I can apply what you're telling me to my daily life. They need to be confident, ideally have some sort of background. We wouldn't get into that in the video, but at least sort of the appearance that they have in an advanced training in this work. Positive and fun body language, and then also culturally appropriate outfits. Of course, we know clothing always matters, and so that came out as well. And then a pleasing attitude, that they're calm, they're humble and patient, to be able to provide this guidance to parents who are seeking it. And so we really took all of this and provided this to production education. We can jump to the next slide. And we wanted to highlight one of the final products. Here, I'm just going to introduce it. We'll watch the video and then I will hand over to my production colleagues. So this is an example of one of the final videos on the impact of parenting on early brain building. And you'll be able to see some of the elements that I just talked about from our formative included in here in terms of structure, format, as well as demeanor of the trusted messenger, even if you don't understand the words that they're saying, because it's in Arabic.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Hi, I'm Marina. I just want to jump in quick because I'm getting a note on my computer about my audio, so I'm going to test it. And just, Jenny, if you can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I've got a solution, but I want to just see if this works without having to reboot anything.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we can't hear the sound.
That is all right. It's giving me a system error message, even though we have tested. Let's try one more time.
أن 90% من بناء
We can hear it now.
Great.
الدماغ يكتمل عند بلوغ الطفل عامه الخامس. وهل تعلم أن التجارب التي يمر بها الطفل في السنوات الأولى من حياته تؤثر بشكل دائم في بناء الدماغ لديه؟ نعم، فالطفل يتعلم الكثير في السنوات الأولى، مثل الحبو والمشي والكلام وتناول طعامه بنفسه، ثم يتعلم القيام بأشياء أكثر تعقيداً، مثل الحساب والتخطيط والتفكير وغيرها. وحين يمر الطفل بتجارب إيجابية مع الكبار من حوله، فإن ذلك يساعد في تكوين الروابط بين الخلايا العصبية في الدماغ. وكلما مر الطفل بتجارب إيجابية أخرى، فإن هذا سيؤدي إلى تقوية هذه الروابط وبناء المهارات المختلفة، وهكذا يحدث التعلم. تعالوا لنشاهد.
تمام.
تخيل قرية فيها مليار منزل صغير، وأن هناك العديد من الشجيرات الطويلة والعشب الكثيف بين البيوت، ولا توجد ممرات تربط بينها، فهذا يعني أنه لا توجد علاقات بين الناس، ولا ذكريات مشتركة، ولا حتى حياة مجتمعية.
تمام، هاد بيتي، وهاد بيت بسمة، وهاد بيت معزوزة.
تشبه هذه القرية دماغ المولود قبل تكوين الروابط بين الخلايا العصبية في دماغه.
تمام التمام.
جاد، شو حلوة قريتك.
شكرا هادي.
طب شو هدول الأشرطة الملونة؟
هاي عم بعمل طريق من بيتي لبيت بسمة، حطيت شارع.
حلو كتير، هيك أنت وبسمة بتقدروا تزوروا بعض.
وهلأ بدي ساوي طريق من بيتي لبيت معزوزة.
Great. Thank you, Marina. Hi, everyone. I'm Shauna. I'm representing the curriculum side. I just wanted to give a brief overview before we jump further into content around how we chose this particular curriculum. So as you can see, we covered the impact of parenting on brain building, understanding ECD, early childhood development, understanding stress, speaking to your child in an empathetic manner, nutrition, and gender equity. These topics came directly from IRC and from their rapid assessment with people in the field, with both field staff and parents and caregivers. But I just want to highlight that a few of these came out as particularly important once COVID started. So there was already a demand for these videos, but the demand really increased as caregivers were spending more time with children at home. So in particular, empathy and understanding stress came out as huge. Play in terms of creating a positive learning environment for children at home now that they were no longer in school. And then another one that came out was positive discipline, which was not something we included in these original 6 videos, but we have actually started a positive discipline video that draws very directly from the learnings from this project. So I just wanted to highlight how this curriculum was important and then became increasingly important at this time. And now I'll hand to Essie, who can tell you about how she brought this to life.
Thanks, Shauna. Hi, everybody. My name is Esty, and as Joe had mentioned, I lead on production of Ahlan Simsim. And as you can imagine, we were very excited to produce this very needed and timely messages, but COVID hit. And so we had to shut down our studio production in Jordan and actually figure out ways to produce from home. And get our puppeteers, our crew all trained how to use technology, actually a lot of mobile technology to help with the production. And so we've produced the 6 videos with kind of a hybrid model where some of the content was developed from home remotely, and then some of it was actually finally taped in the studio with very strict guidelines. And the end result actually worked in a beautiful way, allowing us to use the technology in the way that it was intended from the beginning, but truly applied within the COVID time as parents and children were at home turning to their mobile and other digital devices to get content. And we were able to post our content on Ahlan Simsim's YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as distribute the content through our colleagues at IRC via WhatsApp messaging. And though we had to pivot due to COVID, we ended up creating quite a lot of interesting material in addition to the 6 videos that were initially thought of and developed. And if we could go to the next slide, we could share some of that with you. So we pivoted and we looked at what could we do immediately. And it was truly wonderful to have the support from the GSMA team to work with us and agree that we could adopt and localize certain new materials that Sesame Workshop was working on, and also create brand new materials that parents and children using their mobile devices could actually interact with at home. So we created a variety of PSAs that were then dubbed into Arabic. They were dubbed into both classical Arabic and the Levantine dialects. And we also created static materials, games, and infographics that parents could use to talk to their children about COVID, about how to keep themselves healthy and safe, and at the same time entertained and learning through play. And we created a variety of different images of our beloved characters that children were connected and relating to with the masks, so they could see their friends, Basma, Jad, Mezouza, and others, wearing the mask that children themselves had to adopt and wear themselves. And so all of these materials were further made available through Ahlan Simsim's digital platforms and through our partners at IRC through WhatsApp messaging and incorporation into the larger programming. So with that, we're going to turn to how it all actually worked out afterwards and what the research told us we did well and we could learn more from and progress into the future. Kim, over to you.
Kim, you may be on mute.
Okay, I'll jump in. To keep things moving, Kim might be indisposed. So
Just having technical issues,
looks
sorry.
like her team's crashed. Okay, I'll keep going until you can get back on, Kim, but just jump in when you can, because yeah. Okay, so as
I'm here.
here we go. Yay,
Sorry.
great. Go ahead.
I'm just on my phone. What perfect timing for my hi everyone. Sorry. So thanks, Joe, for pitch hitting for a second. Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, not ideal to be holding my phone at this time, but we also ran a small evaluation after all of the videos had been completed. We provided them to families, again, the same demographics, And what we found is that caregivers put a lot of trust into both the messengers, but also Ahlan Simsim characters. They relate to them and trust them because of their warmth and expertise. Both the male and female social workers were well received by caregivers of both genders, as well as the nutritionists. And that was really one where we struggled a little bit informative because they did not respond positively to the doctor, but they really did want someone with training in that field. And so really great to work with production education and identify a trusted messenger and the attributes of a trusted messenger that parents could really connect with. But what was also interesting is that Ahlan Simsim characters were also seen as trusted messengers. So Hadi, Basma, Jad, the whole crew. Hadi especially because he was perceived to be helpful, he has a warm personality, and because he pushed children to develop their own solutions and did not tell them what he thought that they should do. Some female caregivers noted that Hadi's presence provided important role modeling for a nurturing male caregiver. We do hear this quite frequently, particularly from mothers and other female caregivers, that they would like more Hadis across all of our co-productions. But then they would also like the female version of Hadi. So that's helpful learnings as we're creating more and more Ahlan content. They like Jad and Basma for their helpfulness. The value of friends that help each other always really resonates with families. They like Mezouza because Mezouza always brings levity. That what we always know is the importance that at the end of the day, more than anything, our content brings families joy. And so it's always really important to have that element in there as well. What was also interesting is that caregivers noticed that Gargor or Grover was missing. And so they were asking about where he was. And so that really does relate back to the trust and the warmth that they feel for the Ahlan universe. So it was really interesting that they were noticing absence of some characters as well. Jumping to the next slide. Thanks, Marina. And then what was also interesting is that we weren't sure going in what the right combination of Trusted Messenger with Muppet content was. And what really came out clearly is that it's the combined power of these two. So they really wanted the Trusted Messenger because they brought validity and expertise to the content that was being shared. And they also just liked hearing the experts speaking directly to them. But what was important is that the Muppet scene with Hadi, Basma, Jad, and Mezouza really provided informal language. So where they were not totally understanding the more formal language of the Trusted Messenger, they were able to see it applied through the Muppets in a much more informal way. And so that really brought the two pieces together. And so what was also interesting in our formative content, they were saying, because there are Muppets, this content is for children. But as they continued to watch the video content, it became very clear to them that the Muppets were for them as well, and that they really did see the Muppets playing a really crucial role in this content. Jumping to the next slide. And then the final major finding is that we wanted to see how they could use these videos on their own. That's really the ultimate, the goal of these videos. How can they integrate them into their own media use and own conversations with their children? And so they imagined, they kind of had sort of mapped out how they would use the videos. And I thought it was particularly interesting. They liked that the format was short. They thought it was appropriate, that the length was right at where it needed to be. And as I mentioned, the videos are targeted to adults, but they do think that they would still like to watch them with their children, both as a bonding experience and for the educational content. But what was also interesting is that caregivers had figured out how they would like to structure it. They wanted to watch the videos first and sort of go through the content, learn the lessons, and then watch it with their children in the event that their children had any follow-up questions so that they were prepared for whatever questions may come up. So that was really, really exciting to see how the videos could be integrated into their own media habits and conversations with their children. And I believe I'm passing it over to my colleague Dina now. Thank you.
We'll actually be jumping to Ollie first to share findings from GSMA's research.
Great. Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks.
sorry, you all, I'm a mess right now. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Ollie.
No problem. I didn't know whether Dina wanted to start it up for me, but yeah, I'll jump in. So we, alongside the grant, we were also really interested in really understanding the impact and the potential of the mobile piece. We provide all of the grantees with additional support, financial support through our Insights and M&E team to structure an M&E research study alongside the grant. And that's what we did in this case with the support of Zoe and Matthew and Tegan, working with D3 to run a multi-country study over a number of months from, I believe, December 2020 through to March earlier this year, to really understand three key things. So the consumption, caregiver consumption of mobile-based content, the ways in which caregivers were preferencing different types of content, and then the impact of the Alham Simsim mobile-based content as well. So a few different figures up here on the slide. In total, 92 individuals took part in the study. This was broadly split between mothers and fathers, but could include other caregivers. Most caregivers had a family of 3 or more children, so I think 70, upwards of 70%. And the study also focused predominantly on those that had access to a feature phone or a smartphone. Given the mobile optimization of the content, it is possible to interact with the content via social media, via a laptop or a computer, as the team have already outlined, but we were really interested in this mobile piece. It was really interesting to see that many caregivers were already watching mobile-based videos on a daily basis, 24% watching at least on a weekly basis. Many people preferencing YouTube or WhatsApp, so sharing videos via WhatsApp with one another or within groups. I know that the Sesame Workshop team had, in the early stages of this project, considered a standalone app where all of the content could be accessed, but the decision was taken, I think the correct decision, to actually meet people where they're already consuming and accessing content rather than kind of building in an additional step there. Another interesting fact, and I think this is kind of backed up by some of what Kim and others on the team have already shared, in that over half of the individuals included in the study said that their use of mobile had increased during the pandemic. So again, many people using and accessing content for entertainment, for education and other purposes where other freedoms were curtailed. If we go to the next slide, please, Marina. Yeah, just want to highlight again, kind of maybe to be expected with the group that we were speaking to, but 95% agreeing that actually mobile was the place that they would want to be accessing this type of content. So perhaps turning on its head a little bit the way in which traditionally Sesame content would have been accessed by kind of sitting down in front of the TV for 20, 30 minutes and watching a program, actually kind of chopping content up into this bite-sized approach, really engaging the parents and caregivers as a route to then engaging with children within their care in more depth. And you can see just from the graph there as well that as the study went on, as people were consuming more of the content, increasingly rating it as having an increasingly high entertainment value as compared to other shows. So again, as Kim said, I think really settling into that trust and familiarity with the content, and that being really, really key for the ways in which that is then being taken on by people and kind of used in conversation or interaction with children within their care. If we go on to the final slide of my section, just really want to highlight again then some of the impact that the study demonstrated over a relatively short period of time. So caregivers only interacting with the content over a series of, I think, 8 weeks as it was released piece by piece. You can see on the left the difference between the baseline and the end line of people responding to the statement as to whether they regularly think about the early brain development of the children in their care, and seeing kind of quite dramatic increases in most of the countries to that statement. So really highlighting that this short content is really having an impact with parents and caregivers, and that they're thinking about the way that that will impact their family or children within their care. And the graph on the right as well, just demonstrating an increased awareness of how personal stress and the context that individuals find themselves in can affect then their family. This is something that we have been really interested in working with Sesame Workshop to explore the context in the Middle East, the large numbers of individuals and children who have been displaced or are regularly impacted by conflict or humanitarian crisis on a daily basis, exacerbated then actually by the impact of the pandemic this last 18 months, but without access to many of the services that might provide the types of support that are needed of children suffering under some of those pressures. So to see that the content delivered in this way via mobile, and we'll talk about the reach that it had shortly, to see the impact that that could have over this relatively short period, I think was really encouraging for us. In terms of some of the quick conclusions, I think it was great to demonstrate that there's both the educational and the entertainment impact of this type of content. Definitely correct in the assumption that utilizing mobile for displaced Syrians across the 4 countries in which this project is being rolled out in is the correct channel to reach a large number of people. But further than that, it actually gives individuals the flexibility to interact and share this type of content in the way that they have already been doing. So again, kind of meeting people where they are and really designing something that works for individuals as opposed to asking them to come somewhere else to access that. So this was, really exciting. For anybody internally at the GSMA, we can obviously share the full M&E report, and we will be publishing a version of this in the coming months as well. I will hand back to the team, but I think we might be going to a quiz next. Yeah, thanks.
Again, should pop up on everyone's screens. I'll give anyone else another 10 seconds because I think we've had majority answer. Right, I think we can move on.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Dina. I'm the regional marketing lead for Ahlan Simsim. So I'll be taking you through a few slides to talk about our social media and YouTube rollout strategy and the reach that we managed to achieve. So we'll be able to find out very soon whose response was accurate and whose was underestimating or overestimating the actual reach that we got. So first, to talk a little bit about the content that we created. So we had around 70 pieces of content that were relating to the 6 educational focus areas that we had identified. So we had created a dedicated playlist on YouTube, which is our Ahlan Simsim YouTube channel, with 6 caregiver videos that were posted on this channel. And for Facebook and Instagram, we had the 70 pieces of content, which was a combination of image posts, video posts, carousels, accompanied by education scripted captions that were in line with the 6 focus areas. And these content were basically posted between November and February. This is just a selection of some of our favorite posts. And this was purely organic, right? So we had posted all of these pieces of content on our Ahlan Simsim channels. And in addition to that, because we wanted to get eyeballs, exposure, reach on this content and engagement, we obviously had to put together a paid digital campaign to make sure that we are managing to reach as many people as we wanted within the 3 countries. So next slide, please. So with regards to our paid digital campaign overview, really our main objective was to support our caregivers with social emotional learning content through the specific focus areas. And so we did that by putting a full marketing and digital strategy that was running between November and January 2021 across the 3 channels, which are Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, in the 3 Levant key markets that we were focusing on, which are Iraq, Jordan, and Lebanon. Now, obviously, Syria is also a very important market for us. However, there are limitations with regards to advertising in Syria at the moment. Now, with regards to our target audience, we were targeting caregivers or parents. So these are moms and dads within these 3 markets. And it was a combination of both prospecting and retargeting audiences. Now, you may not be necessarily familiar with this terminology. A prospecting audience in the digital world is someone who has not necessarily been exposed to Ahlan Simsim content before, or been exposed, or is a follower, let's say, of our channel. Whereas a retargeting audience is someone who in the past year, for example, has either engaged with one of our paid campaigns or is a follower on our Facebook or YouTube channel or is subscribed. And so we make sure to retarget these audiences as well, because we know that there's initial interest in the content that we are proposing to them or sharing with them. So we retarget them, and they're typically the audiences that engage the most with our campaigns. So if you go to the next slide, please. Another quiz.
Last quiz. Last chance to get any votes in. I think we've had most people respond. Yeah, okay, all done with that quiz.
So this slide actually validates both quizzes responses, and we'll be taking you through some of the major results that we achieved. We're really proud to say that we managed to achieve through our campaigns approximately 39 million individuals. And that's really a phenomenal result. This was across the 3 platforms, so a combination of YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. The first line item is what basically is the split between the 3 platforms, with a majority of our reach being on YouTube. And this was between the months of November and January. So when we speak about reach in digital terms, a reach is a unique person, whereas an impression, which is the second line, is basically how many times was our video or our content exposed on a screen. And so this is not necessarily unique, because the same individual or the same user could potentially have the same video showing up or different pieces of content that are showing up throughout the 3 months. And so the total number of impressions was 124 million people, or 124 million times, if you want to be a little bit more accurate with the terminology. Other key results relate to views, with a total of 60 million views across 3 platforms. But one of my favorite is really relating to the engagement and the reactions. So the difference between a reaction and an engagement: a reaction is, I guess, in simple terms, what we normally do as a like, a heart, a funny emoji or a laughing emoji, a sad emoji. That's considered as a reaction. So we had 500,000 reactions across the 3 platforms, and engagement includes all reactions. And in addition to that, comments, shares, video views, clicks. So basically any sort of engagement on the post itself or on the video or the static image itself. So we had a total of 21 million engagements, which again is a really great result because someone may be exposed to the video, which means they have been reached, but engaging is something that is optional, right? So them engaging, clicking, or liking, adding a heart is something that they're actively doing because they have liked the content. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. And finally, I think something that I really want to emphasize on this slide, which again is the result of the quiz, is the average percentage of mobile phone usage or the average of mobile phones used to see this kind of content, which was 97%. And I think the average on Facebook and Instagram is very remarkable at 99% between the two platforms. YouTube was a little bit less, but typically we also, for Ahlan Simsim campaigns in general, see that a lot of people access through desktop and through tablets as well. So the 7% remainder is across these two platforms, but still a great result, and really emphasizing how important mobile phones are for these kind of campaigns and to be able to reach our caregivers on the right platforms. Next slide, please. So speaking a little bit more to the strategy and how we had basically put everything together. So as I mentioned, we had 70 different pieces of content across Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And what we did is we split the content into 3 different phases. So we had 2 focus areas per phase, which is a total of 6 focus areas. And really the objective of the campaign was to try to get as many people to engage with the content. So trying to get the highest number of video views, the highest number of post reactions, comments, and shares. Some of the content was existing content that happened to relate or match the 6 social emotional learning focus areas. And some of the content was new content that was created for the purpose of this campaign. So each of the 3 phases lasted around 2 weeks. And so we were able to measure the engagement rates and measure the results across each of these different phases. And something really remarkable was that as we were moving forward with each of these different phases, we were able to increase our engagement rates from a 10% engagement rate in phase 1 to 20% engagement rate in phase 2, and then doubling that to 39% in phase 3. So really what this means is that it's an indication that we have managed to nurture and really increase the engagement levels of the people that were being exposed to the GSMA content. And there was a really high level of interest in the caregiver-facing content that we were promoting and exposing to them. So really, this is something that we haven't always seen. And I think this is a great learning for us, not just for this campaign, but any future campaign, that seeing that, as we were showing more and more content and exposing them to different focus areas and different themes that they were relating to, they just kept on watching more videos, commenting further, and rather than getting potentially bored or feeling like the content is repetitive, they were engaging twice as much throughout every phase. And with that, I hand it over to Joe.
Thanks, Dina. I'm very, very conscious of time. And actually what I might do is, Marina, if you can actually go to the last slide. We'll send everything anyway, so you can all see it. But if you go to the last slide, I do want to quickly we didn't really introduce our characters, but we've got the effervescent and wonderful Basma in purple on the left. We got Jad, who's thoughtful and creative, in the yellow. Mazuza is our goat, friend, mischievous, hilarious. And then I think most of you may know Elmo, Cookie Monster, who is known as Kaki in the Middle East, as well as Gargur, who's Grover, also known as Grover on the right-hand side. And these are our Muppet cast members. And now I know there's only about 5 minutes left, but if there's any questions that I can answer or my colleagues can, yeah, I'll leave it for that.